fought the fight, breaking down the walls in the dead of night. I don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Saw content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
Nintendo has done it again. They have rolled out their legal war chest and steamrolled yet another individual, this time a Michigan man named Ryan Daly. Now let me be crystal clear, Daly wasn't some tech giant corporation, because Nintendo would never go after somebody that can actually stand on their own in court. He wasn't Sony, he wasn't Microsoft, he wasn't Epic Games, he was just one guy. One guy selling modded Switch consoles and a little device called the MIG Switch. And for that, Nintendo decided he was worth a $2 million judgment plus a permanent injunction, his website gone, his domain seized, his freedom to ever touch modding again was wiped out. And here's the thing, you knew how this was going to end. Daly defended himself without a lawyer. That is completely crazy. Don't ever take anything I say as legal advice, but if I was going to go to court, you better bet your ass I would be getting myself a lawyer. That's like rolling into a final boss raid as a level 1 character with no gear, no potions, and no party members. You're not going to make it out alive. Nintendo's legal department is the Exodia of corporate law. You don't stand a chance. The court sided with them as it always does, and Daly was left holding the bag. But let's break it down. What exactly was Daly accused of? He sold modded Switch consoles and piracy-enabling devices like the MIG Switch. And yeah, Nintendo argued that this caused significant and irreparable harm on a massive scale. That's the exact wording, but here's where the anti-Nintendo view comes in. And this is where I agree, calling this massive scale is absolute nonsense. Let's be real, the Switch has sold over 100 million units worldwide. Out of those, how many people actually bought a MIG Switch? A tiny fraction, maybe a few thousand, maybe tens of thousands. Even if every single one of those people pirated games, it wouldn't dent the overall success of the Switch. This is a console that's been competing with the PlayStation 2 for the best-selling home console of all time. You can't call it both one of the most successful consoles ever and claim one guy from Michigan caused irreparable damage. Those two things can't exist at the same time. Now don't get me wrong, I know piracy is illegal. I'm not here to argue the law, but here's where I stand. I don't care about piracy, it doesn't bother me. What does bother me is Nintendo pretending that this is the end of the world, when in reality the percentage of Switch owners even aware the MIG Switch is microscopic. I literally didn't even know about the MIG Switch until a few months ago. And here's where it gets messy. We don't even know what games Daly consoles had preloaded. Nintendo paints the broad picture, oh, modded hardware equals piracy, but that just ignores the reality that not everything involving modding or backups is malicious. What if someone just wanted to play their own legally owned games in a more convenient way? That's where I draw the line. Because here's the truth, if Nintendo refuses to give players a way to legally purchase and preserve retro games, then how else are we supposed to play them? If they won't sell you a copy of the older Pokemon games, if they won't put the GameCube classics back on shelves, if they lock them away behind a drip feed subscription service that could vanish tomorrow, what choice do fans have? That's where emulation is fair and technically morally right, in my opinion. If a game is no longer sold, no longer supported, you should be able to emulate it. In my opinion, that's not piracy, that's just preservation, that's cultural, that's history. And this is where I push back hardest against Nintendo. I completely disagree with the idea that Daly should now be legally barred from modding Switches. It's your property. If I buy a console, I should have the right to open it, mod it, customize it, and experiment with it however I want to. That's the basic principle of ownership. Nintendo stepping in and saying, actually, you don't own it, you just license our permission to use it under our terms forever. That's not right. That's corporate overreach. That's them telling you your property isn't really yours. And let's talk about the MiG Switch itself. Is it a piracy device? Nintendo says yes, I say no. The MiG Switch can absolutely be used to play legitimate backup copies of games you already own. Just because people use it for piracy doesn't mean that it's what it was intended for. That's like saying kitchen knives are weapons because some people commit crimes with them. No, they are tools for the kitchen. The misuses doesn't erase the intended purpose. Same logic applies here. Now I can already hear the counter arguments. But Vigilante, if these devices exist, most people would just pirate games instead of using them legitimately. And yeah, that's true to a degree, but again, so what? You can't judge a tool only by its abuse. Otherwise, we'd have to ban half the items in a hardware store. What matters is the right of the consumer to use the tool they choose with the property they own. And let's zoom out. This is not Nintendo's first rodeo. They've done this before. Remember Gary Bowser, another guy they crushed? Hit him with a $14.5 million in damages and even jail time. The man will be paying Nintendo for the rest of his life. Ryan Daly's $2 million penalty looks small in comparison, but let's not sugarcoat it. This judgment could still financially destroy someone. And again, for what? For a device that affected a tiny portion of the Switch player base? Nintendo wants you to believe these people are threats to their business, but the reality is the Switch is widely successful. They are not struggling, they are not crumbling, they are not collapsing under the weight of the MiG Switch users, so why go this hard? Why exaggerate the harm? Why call it irreparable when your console is one of the best selling of all time? It's simple. They want total control, they want to crush any gray area between Nintendo approved and not Nintendo approved, and they know the courts will back them up every single time. Nintendo goes way too hard when it comes to piracy sometimes. Every single time they bring the hammer down like it's the end of the world, and people always jump in to defend it with the same tired argument. Nintendo has to protect their IPs or they'll lose them. Don't you see that? And look, I get it. On paper, yes, that's true. Legally, companies do have to show they are defending their IPs. If they don't, in certain cases, they can weaken their claim to it. But here's the thing, that argument doesn't really hold up when we're talking about something like the MiG Switch. The MiG Switch has been around since the Switch 1. Did Nintendo lose their IPs? No. Did their franchises suddenly vanish into the void because people had a tool that could let them play backup copies? No. Because the truth is, Nintendo can't control what happens when someone uses a device they didn't create. What they can control is the system they design and the restriction they choose to impose on consumers. And that's what this is really about. Nintendo made a choice. They chose to add detection software to their consoles to identify and block the MiG Switch. They didn't have to. They weren't forced into that by some IP crisis. They didn't do it to protect Mario or Zelda or Pokemon from being stolen away. They did it to maintain control over your property. That's the core of this entire issue, control. And let me break it down even further. If Nintendo can detect whether you're running an illegal copy of a game, then yes, technically, they're within their right to act. At that point, the responsibility shifts to the user. If you're pirating games knowingly, you know what you're doing is illegal, and you choose to do it anyway. You can take on that risk, and the consequences are yours. I won't argue that part. But if Nintendo can't tell the difference, if they can't distinguish between a legal backup or an illegal copy, then it shouldn't be their business. If I want to use a MiG Switch with my own games, that should be entirely up to me. It's my property, not yours. Once I bought the consoles and bought the game, Nintendo doesn't get to decide how I use it in my own home. So here's where I stand. It's simple. This guy was wrong if he uploaded or distributed illegal ROMs. I'll say it flat out. Because he got paid for it technically. He received some type of compensation. And I'll also say this, if you're going to take on Nintendo in court, you better not walk in without a lawyer. That's like bringing a stick to a gunfight. Daly might have stood a better chance with legal representation even if he still would have lost. And I'm not a lawyer, so don't take that as legal advice. Piracy is illegal, sure, but I don't care about it. It doesn't bother me one bit. What bothers me is the way Nintendo exaggerating piracy into a massive scale crisis when in reality it affects a tiny fraction of their install base. Emulation is not only acceptable but morally right when companies refuse to sell their back catalog. If they're not going to make those retro titles available, if they're going to lock them away, then I believe players are justified in preserving and playing them through emulation. That's not theft to me, that's survival of gaming history. Modding is a consumer right. If you buy the hardware, you should control it. You should be able to tinker, mod, and improve it without fear. That's part of true ownership. The mix switch is not inherently a piracy device, it's a tool. Just because people misuse it doesn't mean its sole purpose is piracy. That's lazy reasoning. A kitchen knife isn't meant for a crime just because someone misuses it. Its intended purpose in the kitchen. The same logic applies here. Nintendo exaggerates harm to make examples out of individuals. Let's be real, Ryan Daly wasn't a real threat to Nintendo's empire. The Switch has sold over 100 million units. They are one of the most successful gaming companies in history. One guy from Michigan didn't put a dent in that. This wasn't about protecting IP, it was about sending a message. And the bottom line, at the end of the day, this case was really about Ryan Daly. This was about Nintendo standing up and saying, mess with us and we'll bury you. Legally, they can do that. The courts will always take their side, but morally, I don't think they're right. I think they're overreaching. I think they're controlling, and I think they're hiding behind the excuse of protecting IP. When what they really want is control over how you use the products you already paid for. And that's why, even though Nintendo won this case, I don't believe they won the moral argument. And now it's time to read off the members of the channel. We got Koros Ejected, Maximilian Pegasus 88, Mad Fox 94, Shade Milkman, Oh No It's Justin, Brian Payne, Andy Ritz, J Wesby 65, C-Stars Piplup, Astrius Lane, Maximus 2400, John Molina, Dustin 360, and That PlayStation Gamer. Thank you so much for becoming part of the crew. Well, that's the end of the video. If you truly enjoyed it and want to support the channel, why not consider becoming a member? It's just $1 a month, and you'll get access to exclusive badges and emotes, plus shout out the end of each video. And hey, once the list gets too long, we'll turn it into a full credit roll so everyone still gets their moment to shine. Also, don't forget to check out the exclusive Vigilante merch. Rep the brand, support the channel, and look good doing it. And of course, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow. I'm really trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I really need your help. And also, if you want to check me out live, I go live every Monday morning around 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And until next time, guys, stay vigilant.